We concluded part one with the realization that we cannot get to the mold in order to treat it when it is through and through the vinyl, through the whole depth of the vinyl. And so the real answer there is to replace the vinyl. In our scenario, however, the customer has asked specifically, can we match the color in order to have at least just a temporary fix? Well, the answer is yes, we can match the color, and yes, it will be a temporary fix. But what is one approach that we can take to matching these brilliant colors? Let's take a look. And to get us started with the color green, we know that green is a secondary color. It's combining blue and yellow. So blue and yellow meet in the middle to make green. So in general, that simplifies our color matching, since we know that our target green is either going to be one of only two choices, either bluish or yellowish. And the only other factor that will come in is value, that is the lightness or the darkness of our target. And I think we can see readily here that our target color we could call a yellow green. The green has moved over closer to the yellow, so the yellow is stronger. But for these brilliant colors, when adjusting the light value, we must take a different approach than by using white. Why is that true? In a previous video, we made a vivid blue color by starting with our 120 blue pigment and adding white. And adjusting the value of that blue brought us close to our target color with only a small adjustment needed from there. However, with these brilliant colors, white pigment seems to cause them to gray out. It doesn't give the brilliance that we need. So there's the precaution. Since white will not work, we need a substitute for the white pigment to lighten our value. So let's see what we have to get started with. Our green, as you can see, is a very dark green, a very bluish green. So the value needs to be considerably lighter, and we need to move from blue-green to yellow-green. We have light yellow as a stock pigment. This is a pigment I very seldom use, but look here, it's accomplishing two things at once. It's adding the yellow I'm looking for and solving for value at the same time, a twofer. And just by contrast, let's look at our most used yellow pigment for automotive, and that's the yellow oxide. The value of the yellow oxide is considerably darker than our light yellow pigment. And color-wise, our yellow oxide is orange compared to our light yellow pigment, meaning there has to be an element of red within our yellow oxide. Since red is a complementary color to green, then the red that's in the yellow oxide would tend to diminish our target green color. So that is out as a contributing pigment. So let's see what we can achieve by mixing our dark green and our light yellow. I knew we were going to need a lot of yellow to counteract the darkness of the green, but we didn't go far enough on our first go. Okay, it seems to me the balance of green and yellow is good, yet it's still a bit dark. We are, however, close enough to add some binder to our pigments. And if our pigments represent 20% of the mix, then we can estimate the 80% being our binder. And for the binder, we are using a high gloss clear. Initially, at least, we don't want any of the elements of the satin clear to be masking the intensity of our pigments. So we're going with high gloss first. If we need to diminish the gloss later, we can. As we lighten the value, let's discuss what our target is. Now, people have different names for this kind of a color. They might call it brilliant, electric, neon, luminescent, fluorescent, and people generally don't use these terms scientifically, but just to convey the idea that the color seems to be emitting light. Now, it is possible to buy fluorescent powders to put into your paint. The vast majority of mobile technicians are not going to have that, though. Is there something they already have that they can use to mimic this idea of the paint emitting light? Well, we can use our white pearl powder. The way that refracts and reflects the light makes it appear as though somebody has turned the light on inside the color. So this is what I have in stock, and that's what I'm going to use here to mimic this electric, brilliant, or neon type effect. Of course, if this was a more frequent application for me, I would not hesitate stocking fluorescent powders. But we're hoping here to show an application whereby you can use what you already have in stock. So just wiping that in. It does still look a little dark, but it is wet and a bit shiny. And typically when we spray, it looks lighter anyway. So let's go ahead and deal with this. We'll strain it into the cup of our gun, and we'll give it a spray and see what it looks like. I think we'll be fine. I'm doing a final prep with acetone because I want my tape to stick on this blue welt cord. I also elected here to do something different than normal. I have some silver that I'm going to spray on top of these dark spots to see if that'll help give me a head start in hiding them. And also, purely experimentally, I'm wanting to see if this will buy us a little bit more time before the mold comes all the way back through the fresh new coating. I have no idea, and I've never done this before, but it can't hurt. So I'm just intending to concentrate on the black spots at first, and then I'll blend out those areas so they're not so sharply contrasted to the green. I'm going to do a little sanding here with some 600 to make a perfectly smooth surface, and then a final prep. Now, of course, it's time for the final color, and this is the coating that will also tell us whether we're on target. This is the kind of color that looks lighter and more yellow when it's put on in really light coats. But once we build up a couple of coats, we'll get to see the true color. And here I need a little bit more. But when you get a thicker coating, then you start to see the true depth of the value and the depth of the color. As you can see it looking more green than yellow now as we get a couple coats on. Okay, so this will be our very final color, ensuring that our coating is even all the way. Now all that's left is a nice clear coat with some cross-linker and a little slip additive. There is a little blow-by of color onto the blue welt cord, so I have cut a little piece of the gray scuff pad and I'm using that to clean up my welt cord. That way I don't damage anything else. I thought it was noteworthy on my trip to deliver these that the inside lip of this vinyl was never painted, but you can't tell the difference between that and the freshly painted parts. And here we are with the rest of the seats that needed a few spots blended in, but of course we had the technique down and they blended in perfectly. Job done. Now in part one, I mentioned how that a viewer had sent me a troublesome color, a neon kind of blue and a Corvette. And so I used the same approach in matching that color as well. And here's the text that I sent him. This color is 120 blue in proportion with high gloss base. I added white pearl powder for most of the value. So it's interesting that the white pearl took the 120, which is kind of a dark blue, and made the entire adjustment for the value here. One exception is I did add a couple of drops of 101 white pigment, but this was not enough white pigment to gray out the blue because the white pearl powder prevented it from graying out. That was pretty interesting. And just so that you can see what effect the white pearl has on our dark blue here, which is our stock blue pigment, I am mixing the pigment with some clear base here. And then some white pearl powder. So it's easy to see how the white pearl powder then contributes to this glow or iridescent quality of the pigments. It makes our paint seem luminous, like somebody's turned a light on inside of it, without actually using fluorescent powders. So thank you for watching, and I hope this video will serve for you a valuable resource when you come across these brilliant colors.